Zach, thank you so much for being here. You are in Florida. You're a team lead. You've done 100. You did 100 million as a team in 2024. Your team did 300 million in 1 year before COVID. You personally have closed 38 loans in a month solo, and your team has closed 130 loans a month as a team. Again, as a month. Your business comes from realtors. And at the height of your lead spend, at some point, you spent $1 million a year on internet leads. You have 4 daughters. You started selling at the age of 5 using a cashier, upselling people. That's what your dad taught you in New Jersey. And what I really wanted to learn from you is how you learned the word choice for influence. So how did you even get started and became such
Yeah, so my journey, first off, Sam, thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it, man. Super excited to see where this conversation goes. But yeah, I started my mortgage business back in actually 2007 in March, really out of chance. So I used to work at Verizon Wireless, corporate job, right, doing sales. And I was really open to new opportunities because, like a lot of big corporate companies, when you do really well, all of a sudden overnight they start cutting your pay, and they reward you by taking money away from you instead of giving you money. So I was really open to new opportunities. And I don't know how old you are, Sam, but have you ever seen the show Entourage on HBO with Vinny Chase?
I, I strive to be like Ari. I just can't be like him.
Okay, all right. So you know what I'm talking about. So one day I was just sitting at the register, I guess you could say, at Verizon, and this silver E63 Mercedes AMG pulls up, and I could see out the window, and the doors in like slow motion, all 4 doors open up, and it's like this one guy who's the leader, which was Rick at the time, and his crew behind them. They walk in, and then everything kind of like just speeds up, and I was like, man, this is like a scene out of Entourage or whatever. And he came in, he wanted to get some cell phones for his business, and he started talking to me. He said, man, I really like your style. You should come check out what we're doing. I don't think anybody wakes up, certainly not me, and it's like, oh, I want to be a mortgage broker one day. I always knew that I wanted to be in business and I love sales, but I didn't necessarily know what that vehicle was that was going to take me to where I wanted to go. So he said, hey, come check out what we were doing. Like I said, I think, for a lot of people, opportunity is in front of them every single day, but many people they don't walk through that door to explore what that is. And I was just in that position where I was like, hey, let me check this out. And I went over to their office about 30 minutes from where I lived, and it was this guy Rick and his entire family during the subprime days in 2007, where he's like, hey, I'm going to hire my whole family to run this mortgage company, and we're all going to get rich. And it was really interesting. He taught me how to call on raw consumer leads called leads to loans that were basically adjustable rate mortgages at the time that people were getting ready to adjust. So he gave me a script, and I was very comfortable on the phones because I had done a lot of cold calling at Verizon to hit my quota. That's a story for another time. But basically, I was comfortable on the phones. So we jumped on the phones, and he started teaching me the script. And then, I remember like it was yesterday, one day start coming in, and like the movie The Big Short, all the banks started going out of business. And it was a crazy time, man. But one thing I recognize about this business is that housing is a basic necessity for all human beings, right? And I felt like mortgage was a industry that was going to stay around forever, because it's a major staple and pillar of our economy, right? Is housing, and real estate has created wealth for many individuals. So I said, when people are running out of the burning building, I'm going to run it. Let me check out what this is, and just continue to get kind of good at it. And you know, went through some crazy times. Actually filed bankruptcy in 2009. So I made 17 grand my second month in the business in 2007 at 20 years old. By the time I was 22, I was filing bankruptcy here in Orlando. Lost everything. It was a wild time, man.
That is wild. That is a heck of a journey. Can you kind of explain like how you started, how long it took you to like do well? Like was it a few days? And then what was the process as like all the banks are shutting down and you're filing for bankruptcy? What are you going through? What are you thinking?
Well, the first thing I was thinking was, man, I need to go get a job, right? Because I bought my first house at, I think, 19 years old when I moved to Florida. So I had some needs, right? I had a house, I had a car, I had a lifestyle, I had a certain, things that I wanted in life for myself. Um, and, what was going through my mind was like, hey, I need to survive. But again, just going back to the concept of saying like, I feel like something's here. And I think for a lot of loan officers, where they're failing right now, because we're kind of coming full circle where there are challenges, right? Different challenges than people had in 2009. But I think what a lot of loan officers failed to do is pivot. So, as an example, I'm always looking for an opportunity within the opportunity. So, at that time, one big thing was loan modifications, right? People were defaulting on their mortgages. They were going through short sales, foreclosures, and they wanted to modify their loan because they couldn't get out of their adjustable rate mortgages because of where the values and everything that was happening. So I actually created a loan modification service. So I was reaching out to some of my past clients. I was advertising to the realtors in my area. Hey, do you have distressed clients? I offer this service, and I actually made an ebook that was like, I forget the name of it, but it was basically a booklet on how to modify your loan. So there was very strict laws on how you could pay for your services, or how you could collect money for services rendered for loan mods, because there was a lot of major law firms taking advantage of people. They were charging, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 and never rendering services. So what I did was I sold this ebook for like $800. Like, this is how you can modify your loan yourself. And then in that ebook, I had an upsell that basically was like, hey, if you want me to do this for you, I can do it. I only charge when I complete services. So that's how I basically kept myself safe and within the laws. I only charged for the ebook. I didn't charge until services were rendered. So I learned what the lenders were looking for. I understood DTI. I was able to help them structure it to where they were getting approved. So I just pivoted and kept doing that. When mortgages started coming around, my pivot at first was, you know how do I stand out? So I made a business card. There was no such thing, 15 years ago as, I mean, there was such thing, but the mortgage broker market share was very low. So people didn't really know what a mortgage broker was and what we could do, nor that there were many mortgage brokers that were going down to a 580. So I made a business card that literally said on the back, go lending down to 580. If I can't do it, nobody can. So that's just how I advertised myself at the beginning. I was walking to real estate offices like, hey, give me your hard deals. And again, that was my pivot. So I just constantly pivot. And I did so through COVID. I did so through the rate, the rates doubling overnight. And that's really been one thing that's kind of kept me and my team in the game, is just pivoting and not waiting around for everybody else or a solution.
No one can argue with your success. I think when you say pivot, I think some loan officers will hear like, well, do you pivot too fast? Should you be focused on something? So what is your logic for pivoting? Are you pivoting regardless of what's going on in the market, or is there a trigger for you to consider pivoting?
That's a twofold, right? You should always be pivoting to make sure that you're improving your process. So pivoting doesn't necessarily mean changing your your focus. It could just mean changing your strategy. I think a lot of loan officers have a general idea of what to do, but I think very few loan officers that or at least the ones that are having trouble having success, they don't know the how. So they know the what, but they don't know the how. The how is strategy, right? What are you doing? So are you pivoting enough? I give a great analogy I think is extremely relatable to, right now, because our industry is really suffering from two main things, both on the real estate and mortgage side. Is one, lack of effort, right? That's every sales industry, is like people are not successful because they're not putting forth the effort. And number two is lack of true knowledge and really sales training and knowledge, right? So, you know, one thing that I talk about right now in terms of strategy and stuff like that is I think a lot of loan officers are suffering from the fact that they're doing the same thing, which is, let me explain this in a way which people can understand. So, for a long time, loan officers, they would work with, let's say, 5 realtors, strong realtors, and those realtors or whatever they were doing were producing X amount of loans per month for them, right? And it's like a fruit tree, right? That you go up to a fruit tree, right? Let's say it's an apple tree, And every single year that apple tree harvests 100 apples for you, right? And use the same technique to harvest that tree, so on and so forth. And then this year, you go up to the apple tree and that apple tree is only harvesting 30 apples, right? So you step back and you look at the tree and you're like, man, this tree looks exactly the same as it normally looks. Let me just hit it from this side opposed to the side I normally hit it. Let me shake it this way opposed to this way. And nothing, there's no more apples that come off the tree. Then they step back and then they hit it again, they hit it again, they hit it again, and they never move. And the analogy of what I'm saying is like there's more apple trees in the orchard than just the one that you're normally harvesting. So the faster that LOs can realize that, like, there's still endless opportunity out there. You just need to go and find it from different places, because you're going to produce less fruits per tree that you have, the better they are. And that's what pivoting is, right? Is like understanding that there's always opportunities. You just need to pivot quickly, because if you're constantly hitting the same tree and thinking you're going to produce the same results, that's just not realistic. Hope that makes sense.
I love that analogy. It's actually perfect. You can have your stable trees that are always there and you can go back for more, but if that's the only thing you do, you're leaving yourself at risk of that tree like losing its fruits. Like I said, let's bring it back to reality. We're talking about realtors. If you only are relying on those few realtors, it's a high risk that one of those realtors just will stop working with you for whatever reason. Maybe they don't have any more business to give you. Maybe you mess up. Maybe they like someone else. So diversifying. So is your philosophy when it comes to realtor business, have more realtors and get a little less from each one? Or what is your philosophy on realtor business?
I actually prefer to go deep than wide. That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't want to keep the funnel full, but I find it a lot more fruitful to find the individuals who are producing and lean into them and provide them the strategies to help them grow their business, than going out. It's listen, like, capacity is a real thing for a loan officer. It's impossible to maintain 300 relationships, right? So I'd rather maintain 30 solid relationships that are producing me more results. But that doesn't mean that I'm not casting a wide net. So I always refer to it as work with the willing and nurture the rest, right? So
Interesting.
you're working with the people that are working with you, but you should still have a strong presence online, strong CRM that you're dripping value onto your database, and you're constantly bringing new people into that funnel, but you're focused on a core set group of people.
I love that saying, work with the willing. We can never convince someone who doesn't want to work with us to work with us. It's better to find the ones that are all already inclined. Let me ask some questions from you so we can get a better understanding of what your business looks like. And just talk about it as a team, because you're a team lead right now. You run a big team. How many deals a month are you guys doing right now?
As a team, we're doing between 30 and 40 loans.
30 to 40 loans a month as a team, which is incredible. Where does those 30 to 40 deals come from? Like, what's the percentage of past clients, realtor, online, direct to consumer, whatever it is?
I would say that probably 75% of it is referrals, another 10% is from past clients, and another 10% is from online consumers and stuff like that. But it's mostly a referral based business. But we do a lot of outbound calling. So it's not just inbound, it's referrals, but we do a lot of outbound to our referral sources to try and look for new opportunities from them. And I teach my loan officers the strategy on the right questions to ask. I have a philosophy called deals over leads. So our mindset is we're always looking for deals versus leads. Any loan officer, anybody can get a lead. A lead is, I'm in, a coffee shop recording this right now. I can go to the person sitting next to me and say, hey, do you own a home or are you looking to sell a home? And they're going to say one of those two things. Every single person either has a home to buy or a home to sell. I could get a lead and at some point do something with them, but that's not going to convert into business tomorrow. So I teach my team to prospect for deals, and it's going from top of funnel to the bottom of the funnel. Like, top of funnel example would be One thing that loan officers don't do, and I didn't even figure this out till recently, is like I used to call on listing agents and I used to say things like, "Hey, my name is Zach with Home First Lending. I'm giving you a call just to thank you and your seller for accepting my buyer's offer. I hope to have a really great transaction with you. If you need anything, reach out to me." And I was just basically setting a stage for me to be able to circle back around with them later if the deal got done quickly. But as long as the deal got done on time, why does the listing agent really care? But then I would have an awkward conversation at the end and be like, "Hey, so did you know that got clear to close in 10 days? They're like, "Okay, cool." I'm like, "Well, do you work with buyers and sellers mostly?" And they're like, "Oh, I work with sellers." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Well, if you need something," but that didn't result in a deal. That just resulted in a potential relationship. But where our strategy changed is, think about, imagine calling a listing agent today and saying something that no other loan officers are saying, "Hey, you could lead with gratitude." That's the number one rule, by the way, when it comes to getting referrals in business. You always lead with gratitude. So calling them and still saying, "Hey, thank you so much, but out of curiosity, what is your seller's exit strategy?" And they're going to say, "Exit strategy, what do you mean?" Be like, "Well, are they buying another home?" Half the time they're going to say yes, half the time they're going to say no, it's an investment property or it's a vacation home or whatever it is. But if they are selling a home, you could say, or buying another house, you could say something like, "Well, hey, I know how stressful it is to have to manage two different lenders. Out of curiosity, are they working with your lender or somebody they brought?" A lot of listing agents don't really push their sellers to get pre-approved with their person because they're only focused on that, selling their home. So a lot of these people just deal with whatever, they are going to their own bank to get the pre-approval. So you can say something like, "Hey, I'd love to keep both of these transactions in one house and make it a smooth process for your seller. Can I give them, a call and see if we could maybe beat the terms?" So there's a deal right there, right? They're selling their house, they're under contract, they're buying another house. There is a deal right there. So there's probably 10 different strategies that we use on a weekly basis to reach out to realtors to find deals that are actually happening, right? Like, a lot of people go under contract on the weekends. Are you calling on Monday your agents and saying like, "Hey, like, what showings did you do? Are you writing offers?" Right? Those are deals, not leads. That's just an example.
It is no surprise you're so successful. And this kind of ties into what you told me before we started, the word choice for influence. You ask the right questions. A lot of loan officers will probably think that it's a bed pusher, which I don't think it is. How do you approach the mindset of asking the right questions to get deals and not leads?
I think it's just asking more thought-provoking things and surface level questions. Back in the, like, an example of a surface level question would be, do you have anybody that is pre-approved that I could get a second opinion to? That's just a very yes no type of question, right? It's very surface level. You may or may not get them to say, "Yeah, I've got somebody I can get over to you." But if you approach it a little differently and you said something like, "Hey, do you have anybody that's pre-approved right now that's having a challenge in finding somebody in their price, or finding a home in their price range that makes sense?" And obviously that's going to open up more of a conversation, and you can say something like, "The reason why I ask," and this is what you call the assumptive sale. You assume they have a situation that matches the question you're asking. So the assumptive sale is like, "Hey, as an example, I just had a client or a realtor who said they had a client that was pre-approved for 400,000. Every home in the neighborhood that they were looking for was priced at 450 or higher. So they were just waiting for that diamond in a rough to come out and be able to place an offer on that home. And after talking to them, we realized that they were able to take advantage of X, Y, and Z, or get them a better interest rate than what they were getting from their bank, which resulted in, more buying power. Now they're able to place an offer on those 450 homes for the same amount that they thought they were qualified at 400." And that's why I always tell realtors, one of the key questions when you get a client that comes with a pre-approval already and not from your preferred lenders, you should always be asking the client, and loan officers that are listening to this should be training their realtors to ask this question. When somebody gives you a pre-approval, you should be saying, "Is this the amount that you requested, or is this the amount that you qualified for?" Because a lot of loan officers will just issue a pre-approval letter for the amount that the client requested because that was within their budget. And now the realtor doesn't ask questions like, hey, like, so I have a pre-approval letter here for 350, and now they're showing the homes for 350 when they really qualify for 450, and they never put them under contract because they're trying to find them something that doesn't exist. It's like walking into a Mercedes dealership with a pre-approval letter for 40 grand to buy a car when the cheapest car is $50,000. So it's just a matter of asking more thought-provoking questions.
You've shared so much gold, and I want to go back to kind of highlight two things here. The two quotes you said that have stuck with me is deals over leads and work with the willing, and they really do go hand in hand in your approach. And I want to say, like, basically what you're doing, and you've trained your team really well to do this, to ask really good questions to find the need that you can solve. That's kind of work with the willing. And when you find a need, you give a solution. And that's kind of like the assumptive close that you kind of talk about. You bring up the problem, you give a solution to it already. So it's kind of like, hey, if this fits you, then I can solve it for you. And if they're willing, congratulations, you just got a deal. It's almost like when you aim. Your aim is at the bullseye, which is the deal, not just a general target to get a lead. And that sounds like it just comes from years of experience and practice and just fine-tuning your skill.
Yeah, sales is not as complicated as one would think, because I think the challenge with most salespeople is that we are selling people based on what we believe is best for them, rather than asking them what's best for them and just giving it to them, right? Like, just give people what they want. Like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't educate people, but like, so many times we try to debate people and convince them why they shouldn't do this or that. Like, if somebody's like, I want this type of mortgage, and like sometimes you're like, this is not the right thing for you, you end up losing the deal because somebody else is just willing to give them what they want. At the end of the day, like, people are hard-headed and they're going to do what they want to do. So yeah, to educate them, feel good that you're being consultative and providing them options, but at the end of the day, just give them what it is they want and let them make that decision for them.
I have a provocative question for you. I love you that you said that. A lot of people think their role is to be an advisor as loan officers. What do you think of that statement and that job description?
um Yeah, I think that as a mortgage broker, we should be an advisor and an advocate, but we should also, again, I'm just going to go back to the fact is that we should provide people options and let them make the decision for themselves. Um, I think that, you know, people hire a third party like a mortgage broker opposed to going to a bank because they want us to advise them. People generally want to work with people who have confidence. Like for me, I want to work with somebody who's going to just tell me what I should do, because, but that's also because I choose to work with the best people. Like if I'm buying a car, I'm going to that dealership and I'm saying, who's your best salesperson, right? Because I know that that person knows what they're doing. And I'm like, just tell me what I need to do, right? And as long as they come off like they know what they're talking about, and I feel like I'm not being taken advantage of, I'm going to listen to that person. I think generally a lot of people are like that, is like they just want to work with people who have confidence. So yeah, you should be an advisor.
Yeah, I'm surprised by your answer. I don't disagree with it. I think our role as loan officers is when it comes to borrowers, not with referral partners, is to facilitate smooth transactions. Biggest part of that, like you said, Zach, is understanding what is it that they want. It's not about what we want. It's about understanding what they want and then giving them that. And we can advise on a couple of options. We can make recommendations. That's a word I like. Make recommendations, but then let them choose, and we take care of the rest, but we take care of the process. I think a lot of loan officers confuse that with saying like, hey, this is my understanding of a financial situation. Let me force it on you. And if you're not like this, well, too bad. You're making wrong decisions. I'm not going to do that for you. And I think that's the wrong approach.
Yeah, and a key word that I've learned to use with clients, a couple key things is I say, um, let me provide you my perspective. So perspective is a big word I use in sales a lot. Hey, let me provide you my perspective. Um, Another thing is if I'm highly opinionated about something, one of my final statements that I'll end with after I give somebody that consultation is I'll say something like, how can I best support you? So I'll give them all the information and then I'll simply say, so how can I best support you moving forward? Right. So I'm giving them my opinion, but I'm putting that control back and that decision back into their hands.
Incredible. So I want to switch topics a little bit here. Uh, how many realtors do you work with right now that are actively sending you deals?
Hundreds.
Hundreds. And how many people are you calling every week to get deals?
So my loan officers metrics, I have 4 loan officers that work my book of business. Each one of them is required to make 20 outbound new lead dials per day. So I'm not talking about calls. They make 50, 60, 70 calls a day. I'm talking about 20 where they are actively looking for new opportunities. They have to call on 10 new leads or follow-ups of contact attempted that they haven't reached. They have to call 5 realtors. They have to call 3 past clients, and they have to call 2 pre-approved people. And that's their
Every day.
metrics every day, and they're required to report on them. It's a requirement. It's a non-negotiable, and I hold them. So, I mean, there's 5 of us. That's 100 calls a day, 5 days a week. That's 500 outbound calls that we're making in addition to all of our normal calls. And they can't cheat, so they can't call like a realtor and give them an update on a loan and call that as one of their realtor calls. If they do that, that's fine, but they have to then ask those thought-provoking questions like, hey, while I have you on the phone, out of curiosity, blah, 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 blah. Like, they have to make sure they're shifting that conversation to new business opportunities.
How many referrals do you end up generating every month?
I mean, in the height, between internet leads and stuff that we're getting, 800 to 1,000. But I would say my loan officers consistently take about 40 to 60 applications a month. So 6 times 4 is 250. Obviously, you're not taking an app on every person you talk to. So I would say probably on average 400 to 500 referrals we're getting per month.
Currently.
Yeah, and we have a 50-50-50 conversion ratio. I always want to get it up, but what I mean by that is about 50% of the people you're going to take applications on, you're going to pre-approve, and then you're going to close about 50% of those people. So if you want to close, if we want to close 40 loans in 1 month minimum, we have to be doing 80 pre-approvals or 160 applications. And then, if half the people you talk to apply, that means, you need 300 opportunities a month to be able to close 40. Now, we're always looking at how do we improve those conversion ratios. So, like our minimum standard is 50%, but our true like goal is to convert at 60, right? So like if we're falling below that 50%, we're looking at metrics like, okay, you guys are taking a ton of apps, but how are your welcome calls going? Like, why are you even letting this person apply? It goes back to the Mercedes example. Like, you guys know your average price point in Orlando. Why are people, if you quick qualify them over the phone just by asking them some income and debt questions, somebody who's only going to qualify for 250, why are you even letting them apply when the cheapest home in their area is 350,000? So, or hey, what realtors are we working with, and are you training the realtors to ask the right questions to give you better quality deals? So like one of the things I teach my LOs is if they get a referral from a realtor and that realtor says, hey, can you call John for me today? Most LOs would say, sure, I'll give them a call. My LOs say, sure, what is your scenario? What is their scenario? And half the realtors will say, well, what do you mean? And they'll say, well, tell me a little about what's going on. And we're subconsciously training our realtors that it is not okay to not ask your prospect questions about their financial situation, because old school realtors think that they just pass the deal off to the LO and the LO handles everything. New school realtors that are closing at a high conversion, they're asking qualifying questions before they hand it off to a loan officer, because real estate is all about deals and negotiation. And the way that you put together a deal is by knowing your player profile of your prospects. So we train realtors every day to ask great questions, not because we want them to replace us or do our job, but because we want them to know what they're working with so that they can win that client over on their first phone call because they know what they're talking about. And that's how we're constantly looking to increase our conversion and get better quality deals. And that goes back to working with the right realtors. If I can train an army per se of 10, 20 realtors to ask great questions and bring me high quality deals, maybe get my conversion up to 70%, where 7 out of 10 of my apps turn into pre-approvals, and then 7 out of 10 of those people turn into closings, I can do a lot more business with less people. So it's not always about doing more. It's about finding the right quality of business.
And this is what I'm hearing is you're starting pretty wide, hundreds of realtors sending you deals. and you're training them over time to, without being in their face or being unpleasant, but you're training them over time to send you better scenarios, better clients, get used to your way of working. And this is happening through a lot of different phone calls and asking the right questions. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And one thing that we were talking about is, which I think you want to touch base on,
I was gonna
is
go there
the
right now.
shift to consumer direct, and why I'm so focused this year on cracking that code and generating business directly from the consumer versus going to the realtor as well. I'm looking to expand my business that way.
So let's talk about it. You have a great Instagram, by the way. I highly recommend loan officers to follow your Instagram. Wait, is that okay? I don't
Yeah,
want
I
to
would
steal
love
the
them to.
content
They
idea.
definitely should.
Perfect. So tell us about your direct to consumer thoughts, strategy, and why you're betting so big on it.
Yeah, well, a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm sure you've heard this before. This is not a new statement that somebody's ever said, is like those who control the lead control the market, right? So I love realtors. I'm extremely grateful for my referral business from realtors. But one thing I know, or a couple things I know, let's talk about realtors and let's transition to consumers. Number one, if I want to get the best realtors in town to send me business, it could be a long road to earn their business, especially if they have another relationship to build their trust. Even the most well-known loan officers in town, it's a process, right? People don't just send you leads overnight. Maybe it's easier for people like me because I've been around for so long to get my foot in the door, but I still got to work that relationship. But imagine me having a pre-qualified lead and going to the best realtor in town saying, hey man, I really love what you're doing, and your brand. I've got a client that I would love for you to work and help me out, and be able to give them a pre-qualified lead. Nobody's doing that. Just they're just not. Like, you think they are, but people are just not doing that. So I want to be able to control the type of realtors that I can bring into my sphere by providing them leads. And the only way I can do that is going consumer direct and generating the lead first, getting them pre-approved and handing it off to the agent. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I can't have all my eggs in one basket. Again, love realtors, extremely grateful, but realtors are salespeople just like mortgage brokers, and they have ebbs and flows in their business, right? And the best realtors that close 5 deals in 1 month with me, the next month it may not close any. And that's not a predictable, repeatable, and consistent business that I can bet on and run, right? So yes, when you have your funnel full and you're constantly bringing in new realtors, it's all good, but it's not scalable because 5 deals in, and then that realtor falls out, and then the next 5 deals come in, and you're maintaining that level of closings. How do you increase your level of closings? Well, you got to change your strategy. So I want to be able to control the lead. And I also noticed, transparently, I'll give you an example. This is just the truth, right? Is, you know, a lot of lenders who want to get in with big real estate teams, you're asked to do things like co-marketing, at least in Orlando, right? It's a major metropolitan area. There's huge teams. They pay for Realtor, they pay for Zillow, they pay for Google AdWords, and they want a lender who's going to participate in that with them, right? So I've had accounts this year, as an example, where I'm investing $2,500 a month with them. And just because their business is not doing as well as they want, we're just not closing a high amount of business. I just started running not just started. I'm running an ad right now for Florida Hometown Heroes, a program that gives you $35,000. I spent $200 on lead spend and I got 7 leads. So if you 10x that and I spend $2,000, which is less than what I'm paying with that real estate group, right? That means I'm going to get 70 leads. I could probably convert, knowing my metrics, I could probably convert 4 or 5 of those into closings in 1 month. So for the same amount of money, I'm able to do 4 or 5. I'm able to then refer, like, though I got a Hometown Heroes lead. They were looking in South Florida. Guess what? I was able to refer that lead to a South Florida agent. Do you think they're going to think of me next time they have a lead because I gave them that? So I want to control the lead. You can get more bang for your buck, per se. And it's not just spending money on ads. When you build a really great brand and presence, your brand can grow organically, and you're able to get leads into your DMs for free. People are, you're not paying for that. So that's my goal, is to just generate leads consumer direct, because I want to get more leads consistently to my team without relying on referral sources alone.
The part that really stands out to me is how inconsistent realtors can be. And for me, I don't think of it as a month to month. I think of it more as like a year to year. Like I think for the past couple of years, it's been a really slow market for realtors. There just aren't as many purchase transactions going on, but there's a ton of refinances. And like I think loan officers don't know how many refinance there really are. So the idea of going directly to consumer makes a lot of sense. In fact, brand, you said the word brand. I think I've always thought of brand as a way to convert leads. It makes converting leads a lot easier. But since I've actually been doing these podcasts, since I started posting on LinkedIn a lot more, I get a lot more inbound leads as well. And my outbound has become so effective. It's kind of like I don't even do as many outbound because it's so effective. Uh,
I say
what
this,
is
it's actually it's a cool thing to say. The best form of prospecting is the one that you don't have to do anymore, right? Like there's no, like, I think people like feel, how do I explain this? I think people feel like they're not doing it. Like everybody, it's hustle, hustle, hustle all the time. Like, oh, if I'm not making outbound calls, I'm not successful. I'm not hustling. I'm not grinding it out. But who cares? Like at the end of the day, like if you built a business where people are calling you and reaching out to you, isn't that everybody's dream?
I don't talk about this on the podcast a lot, but I can only like my clients are loan officers that are doing 30 million plus, and no one who's listening to this even knows my offer. But I can only handle 2 leads a week, and it takes me exactly 10 minutes a week to get my 2 leads a week at this point, and that's because of brand. So it's I love what you said, that the best prospecting is the one you don't really have to do anymore. And it's so true. And when you build your business right, especially I brand is so strong. I wasn't a big fan of brand. I thought it was woo woo and like singing kumbaya, but it really does work.
Yeah. And it's a process though. So, I've been on this consumer direct journey online social wise for about 6, 7 months. And some months are good, some months are not, but it's a process, man. And I think a lot of people give up. And consumer direct, just while we're on the subject, is not just social, it's email marketing. Email marketing is not dead. There's a strategy on that as well. You're starting to hear a lot more big time influencers like Alex Hermosi and even people in our space like Amir Syed with Go Coaching. He's big on that. Email marketing is not dead. It's just cutting through the noise and saying the right things and having the right message. We broadcast to our database pretty frequently, and we get leads from there as well. And especially during the refi boom. So you want to get really good at email marketing, and you want to track and test everything. So we track everything from who our spokesperson is on our video, to the background, to the music, to anything and everything. And you should do so on your email too. A/B test things. Right now I'm running 2 ads for the same exact thing, and it's just 2 different videos with the same copy, and track their performance between them. So it's a process, man, but it there's no better feeling than somebody getting in your DM and saying, hey, I watched your videos. And also, even if you're not getting direct leads right away, you are building your brand when you don't think it. Like the reason why I'm able to stay in the game, even though maybe I'm not getting flooded in my DMs from organic leads. Yes, I'm getting good leads from paid ads, but like organic is the end game. But if I'm on the phone with a completely random client that I was referred by a realtor, and that person says, hey, so I was watching one of your videos and you talked about taking money out of your 401k, like that's a win too, because that person went online, looked for who you are to determine your credibility, right? Which a lot of people are doing these days. They see their video, now they're more willing to work with you because of that. So I want people to know that, like, going on social and doing all these videos and building this brand, if you're not getting leads in your DM, but you're getting views and you're getting engagement, it's converting into business and you don't even realize it.
The conversion with brand is so strong. I want to know, because you're running ads and you mentioned email marketing. What's your strategy for what to try first? And what results are you looking for?
Again, niching down a lot. We found that just talking about general home, like, are you a first time home buyer? That doesn't work. You want to niche down. So like, hometown heroes get up to $35,000 if you are in one of these, occupations, right? Or, are you a business owner who hasn't filed taxes? Are you an investor who's looking to put only 10% down opposed to the 20% down? So you got to niche down in ads. The only ads that work are ones that you niche down or that you're showing pretty houses. If you're just talking about general mortgage stuff, people don't give a crap and it doesn't convert, it doesn't work.
And are you going to double down on ads, or are you thinking you're going to go more about just generating social media leads for yourself for free, essentially?
Honestly, man, like I would love to do organic, but at the end of the day, what's the name of the game? Closing loans, and there's no shame in any approach. Um, I think that's the end game, but I do want to double down on ads, so I'm highly considering pulling back. The hardest thing to, if I'm be vulnerable for a second, because I know there's a lot of loan officers that are going to listen to this, and I can't imagine somebody's not going through the same thing I'm going through. If I were to be vulnerable, it's very tough when you're spending money with real estate groups that you've had a relationship with for a very long time and you really love them, you love working with them, but they're struggling and they're not converting the results, but you're so afraid that if you pull your lead spend that they're going to work with another lender. But I learned the hard way, when you start a relationship with money, you end it on money. So that's a whole nother conversation, but that's honestly the truth. And that's always, I think, a big fear for a lot of LOs is like they hold on for so long and they continue to spend money, and it doesn't convert. And I always ask myself every day, like, at the end of the day, is that paying me and my team's bill? So it's like, if I were to pull ad spend of $2,000-$3,000 from somebody who have only closed a handful of deals this year, like, what am I really losing when I could put that and control my own destiny and choose the people I'm referring business to and where I'm getting my business and, all across Florida instead of just Orlando? That's a great thing about socials. Like, I'm getting leads all over Florida, for this program. So that's just the challenge that I'm facing right now. As you asked me, do I want to double down? I do, but like I can't continue to spend unlimited money, right? Like I need to be smart. Like back in the day when money was just flowing, when we were closing 100 deals a month, yeah, you could just experiment. But people go bankrupt and broke fast when they don't budget their money and treat this like a business. So I need to reallocate my budget if I want to double down on ad spend.
How do you calculate how much budget you're going to have for running ads and how much for experimenting with new marketing tactics?
Um, I don't necessarily allocate. We're well capitalized in terms of like we save money and have reserves and stuff. So I don't necessarily like look at the amount I'm spending. Obviously reasonable. I'm not spending exorbitant amounts of money. I'm spending $200,000-$300,000. I'm not doing like $20,000-$30,000 online ad budgets. But what I am looking at is my time period, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna give this 90 days. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to cut it. And that's also how I approach my new realtor relationships. Is before I'd be like, back in the day, be like, oh, let's do this for a year. I'm like, no, let's do this for 90 days and like see how this does. So I'm reassessing on a 90-day period if something's working.
And you track all of these, like, hey, we started this 90 days. Here's how it is now, like 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, 60 days, and day 90, not profitable, no way of making it profitable, cut it.
Yeah. And luckily I have a great business partner who handles all of our financials. So personally, I have a discretionary budget that I can just spend however I want and experiment on a monthly basis with anything and everything that covers my stuff. Over and above that, I have to present a business plan to him. Not like a long, lengthy business plan that takes months to approve, but like, hey, what am I trying to spend? What are the results I'm looking? If this doesn't work, when am I cutting it off type of situation. And then sometimes he'll tell me like, hey man, like you're overspending, cut it from somewhere else. So like, with my videographer, like I want to do something else right now that costs me $1,000 a month. And I had to go to my videographer and be like, hey man, like we're not producing the results in this sector right now. So I need to cut my spend to $1,000 and like or by $1,000, and I needed to find that money. So it's not always about spending, it's about also finding money. There's a lot of things that we can cut and budget out so that we can reinvest it in other places. So I stay within my limit of what I'm comfortable spending every month, which is somewhere around $30,000 a month
That's the money you're willing to spend for
on
marketing.
marketing. Yeah.
That's a healthy budget. That's a lot more than most people do.
Yeah, but it's eaten up quickly when you're spending 20,000 of that on co-marketing leads with realtors. And that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes you're just like, man, if I were just to say screw spending all that and put that 20 grand into Facebook ads every month, like where would we be? And that's the biggest challenge that I'm having right now.
It sounds like you're slowly killing off some of the co-spending ones that aren't super beneficial to both parties and reinvesting it in Facebook ads or other ads.
Yeah, you know, sometimes realtors come to me when I start a new relationship and they're like, what can you do for me? And and it's like, do we want to throw good money after bad? And sometimes that's why I'm in the position right now. It's like, hey, like how many what can I do for you? Well, I'm generating leads that your other LOs are not, and instead of like, I would have to spend less money on co-marketing with them if I was generating my own leads and providing referrals to them. So that's another reason. It's like, I want to be able to, when realtors say, hey, can you spend $1,000 a month with me? I'd be like, well, how about I give you 2 or 3 referrals from the money I'm spending?
I think when you mention like asking the right questions, whenever a realtor always has come up to me and ask me like, hey, I want leads. I ask them, do you want leads or do you want clients? Because if you want leads, I'd give you 1,000 leads right tomorrow. I'll get them for $1 a pop on Facebook. But if you want deals, let's talk about how I can get you deals. So what you're essentially doing is now reframing the conversation of what do you really want, Mr. or Miss Realtor? Let me give you that. And you've stacked so many different talents that no other loan officer in your market can really do what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Zach, one question every loan officer is wondering. Do you take any money home or do you spend it all on business?
I definitely take money home.
Fair.
But way less than I did in the past to be able to reinvest back in my business. So I actually set quotas for myself for payouts. So my team members have to close a specific amount of deals each in order for me to take a paycheck on them, and I put money back in. So over the last few years, I've set my pay to where I know I can cover all my expenses, because I always think about, when the times were really, really good, just imagine if, me and my partner left a small amount of money, let's just call it $100,000 each in the business, over a 3 or 4 year period, we would have $1 million in cash more sitting in the account. What kind of damage could we do right now? So, Gary Vee always said it, or actually, I'm going to use an industry titan that all of us highly respect, which is Matt Ishbia. Matt Ishbia, if you know his story, he only paid himself a certain, I'm not going to disclose the money, I know, but a very small salary comparative to what he's earning today for many, many, many years. Now, I'm sure his business paid for his expenses and stuff like that, but I'm talking a fraction of what he's making now. And he just kept putting it back. He said, what is that basic thing? And if he pulled every dollar out, he would never be able to invest back in his business. But he was paying himself, let's just call it $500,000 a year, right? And let's say he did that for 10 years straight. Well, guess what happened on the 11th year? He paid himself billions of dollars, right?
Oh.
And then he bought the Suns and this and that, and was able to, keep his company number one in the nations because he was willing to reinvest back in. So that's all about delayed gratification. It's like, what are you willing to delay in order to achieve what you're looking to? I mean, we all want nice things. We all want to pay ourselves, and yeah, pay yourself first, but you gotta, believe in yourself enough to invest back in your business, because that's going to give you the biggest return over anything else.
It's a balance. And I think I'm going to add a caveat to this, like know where you want to end up. Zach loves winning, loves the game of business. Like Zach isn't here to just make a comfortable living. He hit that many years ago. So for him, it's about like having a fun business that he likes, can grow. That's the game he's playing. If for you, if it's just like making a comfortable living, a few $100,000, it's a different game, and take your money out and you don't have to worry about so much about investing much money in it, like having $1 million in a P&L for investment later. Zach, we're coming to an end here. What advice do you have for loan officers?
Really three main things. Number one, be present, right? Especially in this market, now's the time to get market share. If you're not present, if you don't have your on sign on, right, and people don't know you exist, you're never going to go anywhere. So make sure you have the necessary things in place, like your social media profile. Okay, you don't need to post every day like me, but have your social media built out, right? Have your Google profile. Like, be present, be out there in the community. People got to know you're in business. As good as you are, I tell one of my loan officers, Noelle, I love her to death. She's amazing. She closes 9 or 10 loans a month and she doesn't post on social media. People don't even know she exists. I said, if more people knew you existed, you'd be doing a lot better. So make sure people know you exist. Number two, make sure that you're practicing exceptional communication. The great thing about this business is that you don't need to be doing backflips or anything fancy. You just need to be consistent and provide great service. People want to work with people who provide great service. So communicate exceptionally, provide great service. And number three, don't be afraid to ask for the business. So that means don't be afraid to ask for opportunities. Don't be afraid to lean in. As nice as you are, a lot of times that doesn't equate to you actually getting business. So you got to be willing to ask for the opportunity, to ask for the business. And I'm not saying be a hardcore salesperson and go for the kill every time. Build relationships, express gratitude, get to know people, do all those things, but don't forget to ask for the opportunities. People want to work with people who are getting after it. And if you just do those three things right now, and really in any market, you can sustain success.
That's so good. That's so good. And can loan officers reach out to you?
Absolutely, man. My DMs are open. You could reach out to me right on Instagram, Zach_the mortgage broker. You can hit me up anytime. I love to, network, mastermind, and, at this level of my career, give back in any way that I can.
Amazing. And that's Zach with a CH or CK?
Yeah, ZACH_the mortgage broker.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Sam.